What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Brian Rennick. He's Al Sacco. It is election day. It is also trade deadline day. I don't know what coordinate with the NFL a little bit better and have election day on something other than trade deadline day, because obviously we know which one is more important. But the 49ers, I mean, they had one of their patented right at the last minute trades, very similar to the Charles Omenihu trade, also with the Houston Texans, but it was a relatively uneventful day. How are you feeling about the 49ers post trade deadline?
Before we get into that, Brian, I have to vent a little bit about, as you know, as you listen to this show, I've been very happy about one of my fantasy teams. Like, I think I'm loaded. I have, I think, the second most points, the most points in my league. Yesterday, it was a fucking Greek tragedy in my house, the way that things unfolded. And let me explain. So Sunday, I think I'm done in this particular league because Jackson Smith and Jigma decided to have the best game of his life. And I'm literally like, I'm going to win pretty easily as long as Jackson Smith and Jigma doesn't have the best game he's ever had in his life. And lo and behold, he has the best game he's ever had in his life. And he had most of it in like the last 5 minutes of the game, which is ridiculous. So I go into it Sunday night, like, listen, man, I need like 45 points out of Justin Jefferson and K. Dot. Impossible, because he still had Travis Kelce going, but that's what I need. Justin Jefferson, being Justin Jefferson, steps up and has like 23 points. And now I'm only a point away. Now I'm right back in it. All right, it's a new ball game. Let's go. Kelce against K. Dotton. Is K. Dotton really going to have 3 huge games in a row? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's going to score 21 points. I'm going to be up by 5 points going into when the Chiefs are getting the ball back at the end of the fourth quarter to run the clock out. I'm good, right? I'm like getting ready for bed. You know, I'm putting on my jammies. I'm like, I'm good. But chalk it up in the W. Nope. Travis Kelce, 14 catches. And I knew I was going to lose when the Bucks had driven down at the end of the game and Baker threw it low to Otten and it went off his hands. I said, that's it. They're going to score a touchdown. They're going to tie it. And then fucking Kelsey's going to score a touchdown to win it. He didn't score a touchdown, but what he did was have like 4 catches for 20 yards and beat me by 0.8 points. I've now lost 4 games between my 2 leagues by less than a point, Brian. I'm inconsolable. I hate fantasy football. I cannot do it anymore. Awful.
It is. It can be a fickle mistress, if you will.
It is. She's a cruel mistress. Cruel.
Yes.
Absolutely ridiculous.
That is brutal. I am in one fantasy league that matters, and it's with friends and whatnot. But my wife joined the league for the first time this year, and last week I learned that she had not been setting her lineup each week. She had just kind of and so I'm like, all right,
are you going to divorce her? Like, is that it?
No, but here's what happened. I played her this week, and I was like, look, I'm going to set your lineup for you. Like, I'm not looking for an easy, like, knowing that there are like 3 guys that are out, and lo and behold, she beat me this week. And I was just like,
oh, that sucks.
Of course. So, but no, it's all
the right
good. Like
thing,
I said, it's not.
It came back to bite you in the ass. You did the right thing, and
it did.
That's what you get for it.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out that way, but that's okay.
All right. So you asked me about the 49ers.
Real
football. You know, I'm surprised they didn't do anything, because this regime has always been aggressive in season. And you can't knock them for being like, they sat on their hands. They never sit on their hands. Whether it's Emmanuel Sanders or whether it's Christian McCaffrey or Charles Omenihu, whatever, they make a move every year to make themselves better. Chase Young. They make a late trade for Khalil Davis, not to be confused with Kalia Davis. When I first read it, I thought they traded Kalia Davis. I was like, what the hell is going on? But they acquired Khalil Davis from the Texans, who's a rotational defensive lineman. He's a depth piece. It's not anything to get overly excited about. But to me, the silence was deafening with this. deafening because you saw their competitors get better. The Lions needed to make a move after losing Hutchinson. They did. They get to Zarius Smith. The Commanders go out and get Marshawn Lattimore. The Niners do nothing. So here's what I'm thinking. You know, if I'm in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's head, they're hoping that because they're going to get healthier in spots, McCaffrey, Dre Greenlaw, maybe Hufanga, they're going to get better that way. And they certainly will. Wide receiver, getting a vet wide receiver, what that would have done is knocked Ricky Pearsall, knocked his reps down. I firmly believe they have a lot of faith in Pearsall and they want to see him play this year because they're going to need him next year because we don't know when Ayuk's coming back. So you got Debo, Jennings, and Pearsall. They're going to run with that. That's where I feel their head is at. But the two things that stick out in my head is, one, I still think the D-line is not good enough. I thought they needed help there, whether it was another pass rusher or somebody, a better defensive tackle. Somebody's going to maybe play more meaningful snaps. They didn't do that. And I think they're going to get, when they get in the playoff, they play a team like Detroit, it's going to hurt them. The other thing that I think is going to hurt them, even though McCaffrey's coming back, and I got some stats on McCaffrey I want to share later in the show, but even though he's coming back, Ayuk was their deep threat. They don't really have a deep threat right now. Who's going to stretch that field? You don't have anybody unless you're going to throw Jacob Cowing out there to a couple times a game. But those three main guys, they don't have anybody to stretch the field right now. That's a concern as well for me as they move forward.
Yeah, you know, I think a couple things. One, I think it's fair to say that they looked at their team internally and went, this might not be our year, right? We're 4-4.
Possible.
We just hit the bye. That could be one. The other could be, we're not one player away and we need to stockpile our draft picks because we're about to pay our quarterback, which means that we're going to have to supplement this roster with cheap, controllable talent moving forward. And if we're trading all of our picks away, you know, it's going to be more difficult to do that. And then three, like you said, they looked at it when none of these teams made anywhere near as an impactful addition as we will make simply by adding Christian McCaffrey back onto this roster since he hasn't played at all this season. Right. And so, you know, I tweeted out on Monday, once the practice reports came out and McCaffrey and Jennings and Moody were back at practice. And I said, the 49ers have added an MVP level running back, one of the better possession wide receivers in the NFL, and a 3rd-round kicker, and the trade deadline hasn't even passed yet, right? And that, but to be perfectly honest, that is what they're doing, right? Like Jennings has been out for, I believe, 3 games now that he missed.
Something like that.
And then obviously McCaffrey's been out all season. And so it might simply be like, look, we're not one guy away on the defensive side of the ball to make us a top 10 defense. We're optimistic that Dre Greenlaw is going to be back. That will be a big addition for us. We are optimistic about the current rotation that we have. It's not the best, but you know, they're getting pressure on quarterbacks. The question is, can they stop the run? They've signed Evan Anderson to the to the 53 man. You know, they've got bodies there and they've added another one. So, you know, to me, it's more like without giving up a significant amount of draft capital for somebody like Azeez Ojulari, who all reports say that the Giants were seeking a high 5th or low 4th round pick. Well, I wouldn't want the 49ers to send their 4th round pick to the Giants for, you know, 8 games of Azeez Ojulari.
Right.
That's an overpay, right? There's only one name that kept getting mentioned where I was like, I would send a 2nd round pick and change. And that was Jeffrey Simmons from the Titans. But I don't think the Titans were ever really that interested in trading Jeffrey Simmons. That would have been a move that altered the defensive line. Everything else, Azeez Ojulari, even Calais Campbell would have been good, but I didn't hear any rumblings of him. So, honestly, I just think it's like they looked at the team and said, look, we're not one person away on the defensive side. And on the offensive side, we're getting our MVP back. We're getting Jennings back. We're getting Jawan Jennings back. We're going to be whole on the offensive side of the ball. And perhaps more than in years past, maybe we look at Lions and go, hey, let's get in a shootout. Let's do it. Let's go offense for offense and see who comes out on top. Because ultimately, I don't think there was a move out there that makes this defense one that goes, we can stop anybody that we come up against. And so, and then the other thing you've got to take into account is this defense will likely get a little bit better as the season progresses because they're just getting more and more used to, Nick Sorensen, and they're getting used to it. Made it to where it was a very quiet trade deadline. They made a move that maybe we look back on and go, look, that's like a Charles Omenihu trade where it was like, who? And then all of a sudden, he's making meaningful contributions towards the end of the season.
I don't know. I just don't think they're good enough. I just don't. You're not getting Ayuk back, like I said. You're not getting Hargrave back. I may be getting back for the playoffs, but even if you do, he's coming off a major injury that he's got to get himself back into football shape. When they again, you want to win the Super Bowl and you're the 49ers. I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. I hope they prove me wrong over the next 9 games, but it's just sort of where they are. And I just going back to, I think last year was their chance. It was there. And again, the football god said, all right, we gave you a chance. We gave you the choice in overtime. You screwed it up. So we'll see. They've looked bad before and things have looked bleak before, and they've turned it around and made a huge run. And if they get in the playoffs, they're good enough and experienced enough. It's the thing with the experience. They have so much playoff experience on that team that they can go and maybe win a couple close games in the playoffs. But I was surprised that this was the only move. I know there wasn't a lot out there, but they've been so aggressive, and I thought they really needed help on that defensive line, but it just didn't happen. But with McCaffrey coming back, I wrote an article over the weekend. You can check it out on 49erswebzone.com about what's been missing from the 49ers offense. I broke down in a few areas, and it essentially comes down to, without saying it, they are missing Christian McCaffrey. And I'll break down to what I wrote in the article. So in 2023,
Christian McCaffrey,
the 49ers actually had the fewest third down conversion attempts in the league. They had 179. That's it. The next closest team was, I think it was Miami, and Miami, and they had 23 more than the 49ers. 23 more. And the Niners were 4th best in the NFL at converting third downs. So not only were they not having third downs, they weren't even getting to third down. And then when they were converting them at the top 4 rate in the league. That's how efficient and good this offense was in 2023. Now this year, they haven't been as fortunate. They already have 97 third downs. They're on pace for 206. That's not awful, but that's not anywhere near as efficient where they were the year before. And they're converting those at a 43.3% clip, which is obviously lower than what I just said. Now, even though it doesn't show up in the running statistics, McCaffrey is missing in the passing game on those short passes to get yourself in second and manageable, in third and manageable, to convert those third downs. So Purdy's avoided checkdowns this season. Last year, running backs, not including use check, running backs, they caught 76 of Purdy's 308 completions, and McCaffrey had 67 of those 76 catches. That's 24.6% of Purdy's completions that went to running backs. This season, Mason Grendo and Patrick Taylor have combined for just 15 receptions of Purdy's completions. And that's 9.6%. So that's a huge difference in the passing game. And we know about the red zone too. Last season, the Niners had the highest red zone percentage. They had 45 touchdowns and 67 attempts, and McCaffrey had 18 of those scores. And they haven't been as good in the red zone this year. They're getting to the red zone, but they've only converted 48.6% of those, which going into this past weekend was 27th in the NFL. So you could see those 2 third downs and red
blue
zone.
balls offense. It's back.
And maybe McCaffrey can help release some of that when he gets back on the field, because
yes,
when you look at those numbers, it backs it up that what's the missing ingredient there? it's him. Now I know Ayuk's not going to be there now, so we'll see if that balances out. But the missing ingredient between last year and this year with those numbers to me is McCaffrey.
Yeah, I've said this before. It still makes no sense to me why the 49ers just felt like they just simply refused to see if Mason, Garendo, Patrick Taylor Jr., right, that triumvirate could replicate even 50% of what Christian McCaffrey was giving them in the passing game. It's like they said to themselves, if Christian McCaffrey isn't back there, then we're not throwing to our running backs. And again, I don't know why that is. I would love for somebody to ask Kyle Shanahan that question. I don't know that we'd get an actual answer, but it certainly seems like it was not even a reluctance, but an outright avoidance of involving the running backs in the passing game. And it's obvious, and it's not just that, but it's just the gravity that Christian McCaffrey has on the football field when he's on it, right? He is the guy that you have to account for in the 49ers offense. And when that guy is gone, it's easier to focus your attention on stopping Brandon Ayuk or stopping Deebo Samuel or whatever. But when you have to focus so much on stopping Christian McCaffrey, that's when I think, and when we get McCaffrey back on the field, I think we're going to see more of those, those plays that go just right behind linebackers, right? The patented Purdy just drops it right over the top of a linebacker to it used to be Ayuk. Now it'll be Deebo or Jennings or Pearsall or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's obvious that this offense is not as good as it was last year, and largely it came back exactly the same except for Christian McCaffrey. So, there's really no way to deny that his absence has made this offense a lot less efficient and a lot less impressive than it was last year. So it will be interesting to see if they just kind of hit the ground running against the Bucs team on Sunday that gave Kansas City all that they could handle without Mike Evans and without Chris Godwin. And but we are talking about the 49ers offense versus that Bucs defense. So it will be interesting. My biggest fear, obviously, is that it's just a matter of time before one of those Achilles ruptures, and then you're without him for the rest of this season and probably all of next season, and he's probably never the same. And I mean, I don't know how to avoid that. Like, I don't.
Yeah, without Ayuk and CMC,
exactly.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. So I mean, but at the same time, it's like I don't know what you do outside of like preemptively having Achilles tendon surgery. I don't know. Like, and medical professionals wouldn't do that. Like, no, we're not going to give you surgery on something that doesn't need it right now. Right. So, but from all accounts, no setbacks. I've seen some of the videos of him at practice. He looks good. You saw him running, you saw him cutting, you saw him jumping, all the things that would put, a lot of pressure on that Achilles tendon. And as it stands right now, it seems like things are looking okay. So I'm excited to have him back. I'm excited to have Jennings back. I think that's also going to obviously lift Brock Purdy's play as well. To have that security blanket of Christian McCaffrey back, I think is going to increase his confidence. And in turn, it's just going to elevate the offense as a whole. So obviously excited to have him back. And then, on the defensive side of the ball, Greenlaw will be back probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. His practice window hasn't been opened yet. Whether or not Hufanga comes back, I don't know that makes a difference. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't know that I'm missing Talanoa Hufanga all that much, outside of just a little bit more veteran leadership on that back end, right? Because Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa are 24 and 22 respectively. So, the youth kind of rears its head every once in a while. But an old friend is back with the team. Tayshaun Gibson was released by the Jaguars, and he is now on the 49ers practice squad, along with Adrian Amos, another veteran safety. So I think they've got kind of their contingency plan there. But, ultimately it's just a matter of this team is a second half team. It has been the entire time that Kyle Shanahan has been here.
Yes.
If you look at their record within the, historically, after week 9, they're really, really, really good. And while
After the bye,
they're
they're 43-18 under Shanahan after the bye.
it's decent, pretty decent.
Not bad.
Tough to, you know,
705 winning percentage,
yeah,
pretty good.
pretty good. Yeah. So, you know, I think, you know, ultimately, like the dust has settled on the bye, the dust has settled on the trade deadline. This is the team that they have. And, you know, is it good enough to win a Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't think so. But at the same time, you know, so much can happen in the next 9 weeks that it's, you know, it's hard to, and you know, you said something earlier, and it got me thinking, like, the one thing that the 49ers have going for them is that a lot of the contenders in the NFC are relatively new contenders, right? The Lions are still a young team and they're new to success. And the Commanders are obviously a young team led by a young
Very new to
quarterback.
success.
The Vikings are a younger team with a, you know, a quarterback that you can't really have a ton of confidence in. And even the Packers are a young team. So, you know, all of the contenders right now in the NFC, while the Lions are far and away the best team in the NFC, like it's not close at this point. There's still something to be said about this 49ers team, their veteran laden team, their experience laden team, and a team that has been to the playoffs and has won and knows how to do it. These other teams don't, and it'll be interesting to see if they can get in. All they got to do is get in, and from there, you know, you can see what kind of noise they can make.
After the bye from 2017 through 2023, 5-1, 2-4, 10-3, 2-4. Last 3 years now, 8-4, 9-0, 7-2. So the last 3 years, when, you know, this is the core of this team, really, 24-6 after the bye. It is a second half team. Can they do it again this year? I mean, history tells us that they will. So we, you know, hope
right.
that that's
if
the
you were
case
betting
now.
on it, you would absolutely bet that yes, they will, because
they're gonna turn it around. Now the pieces are different, but
yeah,
we'll see. Where I want to see them be more like the 49ers. You mentioned they're not moving the ball, hasn't been an issue for them, but we mentioned they're not scoring as much in the red zone, but also they're not scoring as much outside the 20 either. They only have 2 explosive touchdowns of 20 yards or more the whole entire season.
Yeah.
They had 15 last year. Debo had 5. Kittle had 3. McCaffrey had 3. Ayuk had 2. Mason had 1. Juszczyk had 1. This year, Jennings has 1 and Samuel has 1. That is it. Every other touchdown has been from inside the 20. So you want to see them get those explosive plays, get those long touchdowns. Hopefully McCaffrey can open that up for them, because they're going to need that. They have a tough schedule, man. They're going to have to score to beat the Bucs. They're going to have to score to beat the Bills, to beat Green Bay, to beat the Lions.
Yep.
And if you look at the NFC West right now, look at the schedules for some of these teams. Look at the Rams schedule. The Rams have to play the Patriots, the Dolphins. I'm forgetting the other 2 teams now, but it's one game looks tough and the other 3 are very winnable for the Rams. They could easily be 7-5. What the hell are those other 2 teams? We'll have to look it up, but they're getting it together. They're getting healthy. They can easily get to 10 wins right now. Arizona at 5-4. I mean, we keep waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Already at 5-4, they can be at 9 or 10 wins. I don't know what the hell to make of Seattle. I don't think they're very good, but you know, they're in it. They can still hang around. But I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle finishes last place in the division at this point. Really wouldn't. So the Niners are originally, I was like, oh, the NFC West, they can maybe win it with 8 or 9 wins. I don't know now. I don't know. I really think that the Rams and Cardinals are going to stick around for the long haul. So the Niners are going to have to be the Niners here in the second half. Again, history has said that they will. They will be. So, you know, we'll see on that. Are you looking up the Rams schedule? You look like you're looking something up.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you know, and to me, the biggest concern in the NFC West, just because of who we know the 49ers to be currently and what we think is their biggest weakness on defense, is the Cardinals. You know, they've been running the ball really consistently. The Rams play. So
Read,
this is
read
the
it off.
remaining
Read it
Rams
off.
schedule.
Let's see what we think. So 4-4. Let's see what we think.
They
Let's read it off.
are home to Miami this week, Monday night.
I'm gonna say win.
on Veterans Day.
Okay. 5-4.
At New England,
6-4.
hosting Philadelphia,
6-5.
at New Orleans,
7-5.
hosting Buffalo,
7-6.
at San Francisco,
7-7.
at New York
There's no way
Jets.
they beat the Niners twice. 8-7.
hosting the Cardinals, hosting the Seahawks.
Okay. I'll say they'll split those. So 9-8. So I'll say the Rams are going to maybe get to 9-8. Do you have the Cardinal schedule there?
I don't, but I can get it. Give me 1 second.
All right,
But
yeah,
like I
let's see
said,
them
to
too,
me,
see
I'm almost more concerned, like I said, about the Cardinals just because of what I think they could do against the 49ers. On a
All
on
right,
the
let's see what
ground. Like I said, I think the teams that can choke the clock away, I think are the biggest dangers. But the Cardinals are hosting the Jets, and then week 11 they have a bye, and then they're at Seattle.
Hold on. Do you
at
think they
Minnesota.
beat? I'm gonna say they beat the Jets. So 6-4. They're at Seattle. I'll give them a
And
split
then
with
they
Seattle.
are at Seattle after the bye.
So 6-5. Okay.
At Minnesota.
Oh, 6-6.
Hosting Seattle.
Give them the split 7-6.
Hosting New England.
8-6.
At Carolina.
Oh, 9-6. Really? They get New England and Carolina in back-to-back weeks?
Mm-hmm. At LA.
Who won their first game with them? The Cardinals won. I got to give them a split. 9-7.
And then hosting the Niners.
I don't think they're going to sweep the Niners. So 9-8. So we had the Rams and the Cardinals both at 9-8. So the Niners got to get to 10 wins. If the Niners don't get to 10 wins, it's a massive disappointment. I don't care what their schedule is.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. With this roster, absolutely. If you're not getting to 10 wins, that's a failure.
If they
100%.
can't finish it at 6-3,
yeah,
it would be a massive. So it's going to be tight, though. I mean, I think it's going to go down to the end. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I never anticipated the NFC West being anything to worry about, and here we are. But again, when you start 4-4, this is kind of where you put yourself. And again, you lost the game to the Cardinals that you should have won, and you lost the game to the Rams that you should have won. So you should be 6-2 right now instead of 4-4 with a commanding lead in the division, and you're not, and it's because you choked away 2 division games.
These are self-inflicted wounds.
More often than not, choking away division games come back to bite you in the ass in the end.
Yeah, they put themselves in this position, but they can also dig themselves out of it. I can't wait to see what they've had the bye. They're going to come back a little bit healthy. They've had time to kind of, recharge and get all the bad vibes of the first half of the season out. They got hit with those 2 big injuries with Hargrave and Ayuk, and now maybe with Pearsall back and McCaffrey coming back, you get some good vibes, and they can start running out there and start running off some victories. They've done it in the past. I think I feel okay. I mean, I think I feel okay with it. Again, the team has too much talent not to get to 10 wins. I feel like that's what they're going to need to get the division. The Buffalo Green Bay stretch is going to be really tough. Those 2 away games. If they split those, I'll be really happy with that.
Yeah.
Detroit's obviously a really tough game. I think there's some losses in there. I don't see them going 9-0 or even really 7-2. There's going to be some losses, but if all you got to do is 6-3,
6-3,
that's all you got to do. I think that they're more than capable of that.
I agree. And, I think sometimes with the frustration of the way that they started at 4-4, it's easy to forget that they came into the season arguably with the best roster in the NFL. And while they are down their wide receiver 1 and an important defensive tackle, they're still largely the best roster in the NFL. I don't know that you can claim that they are the best now, but one of the best. And so again, if you can't finish the season 10-7 with this roster, then I mean, you don't you don't deserve to win the West, and you don't deserve to be in the playoffs, because I have a feeling that there's only one team coming out of the West. I don't think there's a wild card team coming out of the West. So
Probably not. Probably not.
But like we said, I mean, the NFC East is a dumpster fire outside of Washington and Philly, but those two are cruising to a playoff spot.
Oh, absolutely. I think
and
they're both
then
10+1 teams easy.
yeah, and then in the North, I think you're getting at least two teams from the North.
Definitely two out of there.
So yeah, so you gotta win the West. I mean, that's the bottom line. And again, if this team can't win 10 games, then yikes.
It just feels like there are so many bad teams in the league, and most of them are in the AFC. But there's just some teams that just, unless they play each other, for the
Right.
like the Saints and the Panthers, for the
Right.
most part, they're gonna get trounced. It just feel like you play the Patriots, or you play the Panthers, or you play, right now it looks like the Giants. Like they just look like just mark it up for W's, man. And these other teams can get really fat. So it's still a matter of like, I don't know who's really, really good. I don't know. Commanders have a good record. I don't know if they're really good. I feel like they've gotten a little bit lucky the past couple of weeks. I think the Steelers are a great test for them this week. I'm actually going to bet the Steelers are +1.5 in that game. I like the Steelers coming off a bye in that game, and I like that's a good spot to fade the Commanders, I feel like. But they're a team that you don't know. The Falcons are starting to come on, but do they have the defense? But they're going to cruise now with the Bucs injuries. They're going to cruise to that division.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and the Commanders got better today with that Marshawn Lattimore trade. That was
it was a great trade. It was a great trade for them. Yeah, and the North, the Vikings aren't going to go anywhere. I'm sorry, not going to go anywhere in the sense of that they're not going to fade. I don't think. I also don't think they're going to go anywhere when they get in the playoffs. But double-digit win team, absolutely. The Detroit's going to, if they stay healthy, they're a monster. And even with Jordan Love banged up, the Packers I think are going to get to your 10 wins. So it's really a matter if those three teams make it. Again, it's what can the NFC West, how many teams can get to close to 10 wins there? Because the Bears are going to fade. The Bears have a really tough schedule at 4-4. They have horrible coaching. They may end up 7-10. I don't even think they're going to have a winning record, the Bears. The Giants suck. Dallas is a dumpster fire. The Saints are a dumpster fire. The Panthers are a dumpster fire. And the NFC West, it's not pretty, but it's competitive right now. So outside chance two teams get in, but I agree with you. I think only the division winner is ultimately going to be the team that gets in there.
Yeah. But hey, it all starts this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. And we will preview that game later this week. But for a very exciting, very, very eventful trade deadline, I texted Al earlier. I was like, I have 15 solid minutes on Khalil Davis.
But I always love the things you say for Khalil Davis. People like, oh, let me tell you about Khalil Davis. You have no idea who Khalil Davis. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody watches him. Maybe you heard his name in passing on a game. Stop being like, oh, let me tell you about Khalil Davis. You don't. Come on, give me a break.
Here's one thing that I did learn that I was like, dang, that's impressive. So he came out in the 2020 draft. He was drafted by Tampa Bay or signed as an undrafted free agent. I'm not sure, but he came out of college in 2020. And he was listed at 6'2", 315, and he ran a 4.75 40, which is impressive considering Juwan Jennings ran a 4.72 40, and he's a wide receiver. So now, granted, we know that's slow for a wide receiver. We know that Juwan Jennings is slow for a wide receiver, but still, the fact that he was 6'2", 315, and he ran a 4.75 40, but even more impressive, his 10-yard split was the same as Brock Purdy. Again, at 6'2", 315. So he's very athletic. And I've seen some people posting cut-ups of some of his plays, and he does look like he can be disruptive. And I also saw a tweet that over his last 5 games, he's been really, really productive for the Texans. So, again, it's a depth piece for the 49ers, but a move that I think will pay dividends in the end. But again, like we said, it all starts this week against Tampa Bay, and we'll be back to preview that game later this week. But for Al, I'm Brian. Later.